welcome to Game Day at Rapid Plus TCT 2023. I'm Brandon Ribic, the Technology Director at America Makes, and I'm happy to be joined here this morning with my colleagues from TCT and SAE. So, welcome. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to give everybody a chance, first of all, to kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role at TCT or SAE and some of the things that you've been involved with. So, Laura, is that okay if we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Everybody hear me okay? Cool. So I'm Laura Griffiths. I'm Head of Content at the TCT Group. For anyone who doesn't know, the TCT Group has been in the additive manufacturing industry for 3 decades now. We produce events and magazines all around the world, including this one that we're at today, Rapid Plus TCT. And I've been in the industry now for almost 10 years, started in the industry as a humble editorial assistant, reporting on 3D printing technologies, and now look after a team that covers the magazines and conference. So very excited to be here and to get to talk to you all this afternoon.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Dave Alexander with SAE International. I'm the Senior Director of Standards at SAE, managing the Aerospace Standards Programme, but also, which is really exciting and very, very relevant to additive as well, starting to bring together the aerospace community, the automotive community, to look at where we can drive synergies and really not reinvent the wheel whilst progressing as a community together. So there's a lot of really exciting things I think we'll delve into in terms of the burgeoning standardisation for the additive community at SAE, but there's lots of other services and offerings that SAE is providing, which Mike and Chris will talk about too.
Mike McNair, I'm the Vice President for Aerospace for SAE Industry Technologies Consortia. Under that umbrella, we have a number of programs, including A-Ring standards, aircraft engine standards, and aircraft parts qualification. I also am dual-headed with the Additive Manufacturing Data Consortium, and so that is particularly relevant today, where we are looking at different materials and generating data specifications, material specifications on that for later use and potential certification.
Hi, my name's Chris Chuka. I'm Vice President of Programs at SAE International. Have the pleasure every day to work very closely with these two gentlemen. What my role includes is oversight of our standards development programs, things like membership, and of course the educational programs that SAE does to prepare the workforce in the next generation of the talent we're going to need to drive forward technologies like additive manufacturing and the advanced manufacturing space.
So I'm really excited to have everyone here today. Yeah, I think a lot about the mission of America Makes and really the passion that all of us have within the AM community. And as we begin to kind of continue developing technology and scaling solutions, a really important piece of that is communications and standardization, right? As we bring our understanding and knowledge to bear, we can't hold it to ourselves. We have to be able to communicate it with one another. And so I'm really happy to be joined by everyone here today. And I guess kind of, thinking about things that it's been a while since we last chatted, right? So is there anything kind of exciting going on at TCT or SAE right now that you were hoping to kind of update us on since last time we spoke about a year ago, or?
I mean, I'll go with TCT. I guess the most exciting thing is the thing we're at now, Rapid Plus TCT, so which is pretty exciting for us. We've been partnered with the SME now for around 3 years on this event, so we're happy to be here again. It just seems to be getting bigger and better every year. Thousands of people through the doors. It's very nice to be here with everybody. And then we're hosting our flagship event over in the UK in Birmingham in June, so very much looking forward to that too, but I think you guys are the more exciting ones to talk to on today's panel.
Yeah, I think...
Go ahead, Dave.
I mean, as you mentioned standardization, Brandon, I can kind of jump in there and, just as a quick recap, our AMS-AM committee was additive manufacturing specifications for the aerospace industry. I was set up back in 2015, so that's already 8 years. It feels a lot quicker than that, but eight years. They're now up to about 40 published specifications for the aerospace industry. Got another 46 in progress, including critically some revisions. So it's where the industry's been able to use the specifications to get feedback, see what can be improved, and then put that into the next version. But there's probably 3 really exciting things of that. One is the publication a few months ago of our machine qualification document, AMS 7032. Liz Chrysler from Textron did a fantastic job shepherding that. That was a huge project, but to have something that the industry stands behind on machine qualification was absolutely huge. Another activity is a repair document. That's a work in progress right now, but that's really going to be transformative. Dave Abbott from GE is leading that, so that repair document is going to be really, really important. And then just new processes, cold spray. So that's a new process specification that's being put through, as generating an awful lot of excitement. And then beyond the material process, the powder reuse material machine qualification, so on the standard side, there's also a big need for the industry and the regulators to get together to work out what is it that the industry needs to satisfy those regulatory requirements. Of course, with something so still relatively new, and there aren't regulatory frameworks built around additive. So we have a new committee, G37, which was launched at our Aerotech conference a couple of months ago, which will take industry best practices, it will take the input from the regulators and put together some aerospace recommended practices all about how to meet those certification requirements. We think that that's really going to be game changing for the industry as it gets real and gets to the accreditation stage.
No, that's great to hear. I think over the last year or so, we've been sharing not only the objectives of the institute, but we've been talking a lot about how research lends itself to standardization. And something that I've been happy to be a part of the last few years is the AMMO workshop. It happens each summer, and the theme for the last 2 years has been prioritization of standards, so standards development opportunities, and then the other is research that lends itself to standardization. And so, one topic that has been repeating and identified as a high priority is that machine qualification, that process qualification. So it's great to hear that there's something out there and available for everyone. I think another high priority opportunity for us, realizing it's quite a bit to tackle, it is the certification aspects of things. I think folks within the last 5 or 6 years, we've really been able to address the fundamental tools and considerations we need to have in play to foster qualification, but certification is its own thing. Mike, you mentioned you're involved in aerospace. I'm curious, are there things you're seeing there that we need to be thinking more about to help kind of meet the needs of the aerospace industry in terms of not only standards, but also R&D as well, or
Without a doubt. AMDC, the Manufacturing Data Consortium, is very closely tied to the AMS standards committees. And what we have there is a synergy that exists between the specifications, the data, and then the maturation of those standards. When it comes to certification, that's only part of the equation, right? You also need data. When you talk to any kind of regulatory authority, they are interested in what's your backup data, what's your basis for certification. And so being able to move beyond not just an S basis,
right,
but beyond that to meet the stringent requirements in aerospace is going to be tremendously important. So, but it all starts with that data, and that starts with the specifications. So what we have is that pathway that's now beginning to get forged towards a certification opportunity. And now something, an organization like an FAA or a EASA or someone else can come along and extract that and come up with what their regulatory standards and requirements are going to be.
I think you come up with some great points, because what I've observed in roughly the last decade, a lot of folks have attained capacity, right? We all have, a number of folks have equipment now, right? The struggle is not getting our hands on the technology. It is the information that has to surround the technology in order to drive confidence, not only to ourselves, but to our customers and to the regulators. I think, but also it's a layered solution, as you address, right? These are workflows that we're trying to account for. And I think we've seen a lot in recent history about how data is that backbone. Now, I'm thinking about, we do an annual membership survey each year. And last year we asked a question, it was pointed at, if there's something that you think we could or should be doing, what do you think we should do? And there were about 4 or 5 things that came up. So one of them was design for additive manufacturing. Another was material qualification data, right? Materials data. Another one was actually test methods and validation of those test methods and tools and practices. And I think there were some others around education and workforce development and sustainability. I guess, hearing about those, are there things that you're thinking about, or are there things that you feel particularly that we need to be focused on as a community that would help address the needs for accelerating industrialization?
Yeah, I think that's, each of those are components, right? One of the things we've learned in the projects that we've conducted in AEDC is the need for something simple like a process control document, right? Something that ties all these pieces together into one unifying workflow. That way we can have repeatability, and we can make sure that when it comes to equipment, specifications, and setup, when it comes to operator training, when it comes to material properties, we start to develop that consistency across the workflow, not just in the individual components that you're talking about.
So did anybody else have anything?
Yeah, it's one of the pieces, especially the last 2 points that you had mentioned there, is that, and you use the word community, right? This is, one of our big goals for being here at this particular event and working with America Makes is we realize as an organization that as SAE we can do a lot of things, but we can't do everything. And that, as you're going through and you're talking about those 5 bullet points that you mentioned, and you look at things like workforce development, when you look at things like standardization, when you look at what qualification and certification eventually ends up looking like, it's going to take all of us working together to get to a solution, right? It can't be an SAE solution. It's not an American Makes solution. It has to be all of us working together. So that we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years leaning in, where we have an internal infrastructure where we're feeding data into AMSAM and standards development. We're able to pull that through and focus through workforce development programs. We're able to lay products over top of that for things like workforce development and professional training. But that can't all be SAE components, right? That has to be this complete ecosystem. So we're really leaning in hard on connecting all the right now what seem to be a bit disconnected pieces, but bringing them together through conversations like this is really important to us.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is very important. It's funny you mentioned the sometimes outward appearance of the pieces seem disconnected. Yeah. In the last 2 years, I was lucky to have a little bit of time to reflect, and I started to ask myself the question of, is this as disconnected as we thought, or as we were maybe thinking at the time? And what I took the time to do was to look at events like Rapid and others, along with some of the workshops that we've been in. And believe it or not, there are definitely some trends that seem to show the harmony. There are things that are absolutely progressing in its own direction. But I think because of the fact that the technology is still in development sometimes, or it's still emerging in some instances for the more innovative solutions we're seeing, it feels a little bit disjointed. And then not only that, I think back to the communication piece, which is critical. Are we speaking the same language? Because I think probably something that, while it was an unfortunate time, it helped show me a different way of approaching things was during COVID, when we tried to engage with the medical community. It was a moment where be humbled and learn a new language and learn how to speak the language of that community in order to provide a service. And so, I'm thinking about, how communication plays a vital role in supply chain development and accelerating kind of the development and maturation of AM technologies. I guess, Laura, I was curious, are there any thoughts maybe you had along those lines? Or?
Oh yeah, and supply chain really has been the big one, and I think part of that has been about, we know about the benefits of additive manufacturing and how that might be able to impact supply chains as either a stopgap solution or a complete, overhaul in certain parts of the supply chain, but sometimes it's about getting to the right people and knowing how to communicate with those supply chain managers. You know, what kind of questions do they ask that we don't know to ask, that sort of thing. It's about getting out and not just being in our own additive manufacturing bubble where we all know the benefits, but people outside of the industry perhaps don't. So I think it's about getting that message out there to people that are not in the additive club already, and I do think that is actually happening now. I see a lot more of that conversation happening with supply chain experts and at events that are not about additive manufacturing. They are supply chain events about specific industries, that sort of thing. So it's definitely happening, but I think, like a lot of things, it's taking its time, definitely.
Yeah, I think that being said, it's a reality that we all will need to come to appreciate as we truly expect to industrialize AM technologies.
Yeah.
And I think back to the information that David shared with us, the fact that we now have standards looking at certification, it's a fact that we're thinking at that higher level, trying to account for system level interactions now, the higher order interactions which can occur in a relevant operating environment. And it's very exciting to see where things are going in terms of not only the technology but also standardization as well. So, well, it's been great to catch up with all of you. This has been a real pleasure. I appreciate you sharing the time with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show here at Rapid Plus TCT.
Thank you.
Thank you.